to expose the rank and file of the RCMP to further harassment and intimidation because of a lack of a secret ballot, Mr. Speaker. They are at cross purposes with the needs of a fully reformed and modernized RCMP by presenting this bill.
The honourable member for Parry Sound will have 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes and 30 seconds after question period when the stakes comes back. In the meantime, statements by members, déclaration des députés. L'honorable député de Shefford.
The honourable member for Shefford. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's with great joy that I rise to congratulate the Granby Volunteer Action Centre, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Volunteerism in our community is crucial both for the well-being of citizens as well as the vitality of our community. For 50 years, with patience and immense generosity, the volunteers of Granby have supported their fellow citizens with great dedication. For their thoughtful actions, their compassion, and their gratitude toward others, volunteers in our community deserve our recognition. I would like to give them my sincere thanks. There are so many people who worked within the Granby Volunteer Action Centre over the years, and I'd like to applaud the current team led by Mireille Giguère and the Director General Nathalie Roberge. I wish you a very great 50th anniversary and continued success with volunteerism in our region.
Honourable Member for Saskatoon Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A compassionate entrepreneur who views success as a responsibility. This describes Murad Al-Khatib, President and CEO of HET Food and Ingredients. It's a Saskatchewan business that supplies pulse crops to more than 120 countries and has facilities in 5 continents. Murad is a business owner responsible for more than 2,200 employees, including many in my home province of Saskatchewan. Murad has been the recipient of many distinguished awards, and today Saskatchewan's Lentil King is in Norway to receive yet another prestigious award. He is the first Canadian to receive the Oslo Business for Peace Award, nominated by the Greater Saskatoon Chamber of Commerce. Congratulations, Murad. You are a wonderful role model for entrepreneurs everywhere, and we are very, very proud of you.
Here, here.
The Honourable Member for Moncton Riverview Dieppe.
Member of Parliament for the area of Moncton Riverview and Dieppe, and as the former coordinator with the Kodiak RCMP, please allow me to sincerely thank all of our law enforcement officers across the country for the outstanding work they do in keeping our communities safe. In Canada, we are surrounded by dedicated public servants who put their lives in harm's way every day to help defend our security and uphold our freedoms. Ces gens travaillent.
These people work extremely hard so that we can live in a society where we enjoy fundamental freedoms and values. So let us not neglect to thank all of the police officers, volunteers, and support staff for their help in maintaining order, preventing crime, and ensuring that we all live in safety. Their continued dedication and professionalism are an inspiration to us all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-Sirois. On May 11th, 200 people participated in the Rural Youth Gala in Ormstown. Since 2010, this gala has recognized young people, groups, and initiatives set up for young people. Award recipients have to prove their energy, dedication, and ability to achieve their goals. I congratulate this year's 13 award winners, as well as the 5 notable mentions, chosen by the jury in various categories, from academic achievement to the environment and cultural achievement. I also want to congratulate Daphne Godin-Lemieux for winning the junior prize, and Céline Ouimet, General Director of the Saint Chrysostome. I'm proud to see that there are so many young people between the ages of 6 and 24 showing leadership, engagement, and generosity in their community. The gala is a great asset to the Upper St. Lawrence region, and I want to thank the organizing committee, which dedicated so much time and energy to this very important event. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Markham Thornhill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with great pride that I rise today to recognize the outstanding work done by the students in my riding of Markham Thornhill. Thornley Secondary School has partnered with Nubian Book Club and the Harry Cares Foundation to support an ethical book drive. This book drive was organized to send much-needed school and pleasure reading books to Nigeria. Thousands of books were donated, and the students sorted the books to ensure that they did not perpetuate stereotypes, but instead worked to affirm or broaden cultural and social identities and undertakings. Last Friday, I also had the pleasure of visiting Middlefield Collegiate Institute's Sikh Student Association's Turban Up Day to promote diversity, inclusion, and cooperation among the diverse communities within their high school. I'm very proud of the outstanding work done by the students in Markham Thornhill, and I congratulate them for their work, and it makes me incredibly happy to represent them in Markham Thornhill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Grand Prairie Mackenzie.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Trudy Edgar has served as my executive assistant for the past 11 years. I hired her having witnessed her dedication to our community in the 12 years that she had served as assistant to my predecessor. She agreed to stay on, but warned that she wouldn't stay long. Every few years, she'd bring up retirement, and I would agree that someday we should talk and then never bring it up again. She has been the heart of our office. She is the first to show up and the last to leave, the person who has taught, challenged, and cared for the stream of staff that have flowed through our offices. Through good and bad, she has been the source of wisdom and encouragement for me and my family, and she has served my constituents with great care and compassion. I am thankful for the sacrifices that she, her family, and her husband Lance have made so that she could serve. A couple of months, Trudy brought up retirement again, and this time she wouldn't let me avoid it. Trudy will be missed. She has been a caring servant, a teacher, and a friend. On behalf of my constituents, staff, and family, we wish her good health and many blessings in the years to come.
The Honourable Member for Mount Royal.
Inventor, businessman, performer, man of integrity, genius. These are all words to describe Peter Trent, who announced last month that he was stepping down as mayor of Westmount. Peter wrote, "A political career is like a love affair. Any fool can start one, but to end it requires considerable skill." Peter showed that considerable skill throughout his 26 years on council. He leaves Westmount with no net debt, a world-class recreation centre, and excellent infrastructure. More importantly, he leaves the Montreal Island with 15 cities instead of 1, because it was Peter who led the fight against the PQ's forced mergers, and Peter who made the next Liberal government promise a demerger process. The cities in my riding, Côte Saint-Luc, Hampstead, and TMR, owe their existence to Peter's leadership. As a demerger disciple of Peter's and someone who served with him for many years as mayor, I am proud to call him a mentor and friend. Peter and his wife Catherine are with us today. Please join me in thanking him for his exemplary public service.
The Honourable Member for Cape Breton-Canso.
Mr. Speaker, today I'll join the Prime Minister and the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Labour and hundreds of this country's best tradespeople as they unveil the new monument dedicated to those who have built the foundations of this country. Canada's building trade unions will be across the canal from this chamber at Majors Hill Park to celebrate in monument the contribution of the hardworking and devoted men and women who do incredible work day in and day out, and as well pay tribute to those who have lost their lives in doing so. The monument will stand in the National Capital Region among some of Canada's most prized agricultural achievements, buildings that were constructed by building trades members. It will contain iconic tools of the trade to represent the different skilled trade unions who have helped sponsor the monument. Our Prime Minister will accept the monument on behalf of the grateful people of Canada. On this day, let us stand together and celebrate the contributions of the hardworking men and women who have helped build this great country.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, Île d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, sometimes in life you meet someone who changes your understanding of the word family. Today, I want to pay tribute to one of those people, the one and only Jocelyne Harvey. The Harvey family is well known in the business world of La Malbaie and in the horse riding world through the Charlevoix Rodeo. Jocelyne Harvey is known to be the foundation of a very tight-knit family. A woman with a big heart and an iron will, she rallied her family around her cause, the cause of unity. Today, Ms. Harvey is fighting a valiant fight against illness. But she is surrounded by loving family members and friends who have taken up her fight. Ms. Harvey, it was a great privilege for me to cross paths with you. You will always have a place in my heart. Best of luck. The Honourable Member for Glengarry Prescott Russell.
Monsieur le Président, today is
Mr. Speaker.
Prescott Russell Day on the Hill. Organized in partnership with the United Counties of Prescott Russell and the Township of North Glengarry, GPR Day aims to showcase the amazing local foods, wine, and beer our great region has to offer. I know some members want to free the beer, but I challenge them to come drink the beer. Beau's All Natural, Castle Brewery, Cirque de Brou, and Etienne Brûlé are ready to serve. Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, I know some members here are also sommeliers, so I invite them to come taste the wine from the Domaine Perrault or the Clos de Vully winery. And of course, if there's wine, you need cheese. Well, no problem. We have cheese from the St. Albert Cheese Factory, the Scotidagus Farm, and the Glengarry Fine Cheese Farm.
Those MPs who are vegans, can they eat cheese? The answer is yes. Fromagerie Glengarry offers tasty options for vegans. J'invite tous les...
I invite all members to reception immediately after question period in the Commonwealth Room. Come taste some of our local products. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Nipissing-Temiskaming.
Mr. Speaker, when Ellen Gibb was born, Canada was a young nation of 7 provinces, and Wilfrid Laurier was its Prime Minister. She's seen 16 more Prime Ministers come and go since then. Ellen was nicknamed Dolly during her teens because of her fashion sense. Celebrated her 112th birthday on April 26th. According to the organization that tracks the world's centenarians, or people who are at least 110 years old, Dolly is Canada's oldest citizen. Dolly was born Ellen Box in Winnipeg in 1905, where she grew up, married her husband Dave, and they raised 2 daughters. She spent many years in Thunder Bay and moved to North Bay, Ontario, when she turned 100. She has 9 grandchildren, 22 great-grandchildren, and 10 great-great-grandchildren. She likes to enjoy an occasional glass of scotch or wine and a bottle of beer every day. On behalf of honourable members, I'd like to congratulate Dolly on an absolutely super centenarian, and here's wishing her many more birthdays.
Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, compassion is a value that Canada espouses, yet compassion requires courageous action. The ruthless authoritarian rule of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro has led to the dissolution of democratic institutions, imprisonment of political dissidents, economic collapse, and societal ruin. Canada must stand with the millions of Venezuelans who are fighting for democracy and for freedom and for liberty. Canada must take courageous action now, and with that, I call upon the Government of Canada to condemn the ruthless authoritarian rule of Nicolas Maduro and allow for free, open elections. Follow the lead of the Americans and the EU Parliament and implement targeted sanctions against Venezuelan human rights abusers. And put political pressure upon Guyana, Bahamas, Jamaica, Barbados, St. Lucia, and Trinidad and Tobago to stop the practice of blocking action to help Venezuela at the OAS. Actions speak stronger than words, and it's up to the Liberal government to take courageous action today.
Honourable Member for York Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in September 2015, Venezuelan opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez was sentenced to 14 years on politically motivated charges. Today, his wife and mother, Lilian Tintori and Antonieta de Lopez, are in Ottawa to speak about his plight, a fate shared by far too many. Lopez is held in a military prison by a regime which treats the democratically elected political opposition as criminals. Intimidation and repression are the tragic norm. Freedoms are denied. Venezuelans have been failed by the Maduro government. Protesters, including children and seniors, have been met by extreme and excessive violence. On April 3rd, Canada co-sponsored an OAS resolution once again calling on Venezuela to restore constitutional order and uphold its international commitment to democracy and human rights. I ask all members of this House to join me in calling for the immediate and unconditional release of all political prisoners, including Leopoldo Lopez, and an end to the ongoing repression of human rights in Venezuela.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, as you know, I'm the sponsor of an important private member's bill, which deserves the attention of all my colleagues. In fact, this bill is a response to the repeated calls from a strong majority of Canadians. Few subjects enjoy such broad support. Of course, I'm talking about mandatory labeling for genetically modified food products.
80% of Canadians say they want to know if their food contains GMO. There is no reason to refuse them this information. That is why I have a bill to do just that, and it's up for a vote tomorrow evening. If this House truly represents Canadians, it should easily pass second reading. If my bill is defeated, then it will be clear that the majority of MPs put corporate interests before 80% of concerned citizens. This will be a failure for our democracy. I ask all members of this House to put the interests of their constituents before those of Monsanto. Canadiens have a right to know. Les Canadiens ont droit de savoir. S'il vous plaît, appuyez mon projet.
Please support my bill.
Honourable Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, I remember clearly the day the member from Sturgeon River Parkland was elected as our interim leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. She said, "We will be the best opposition party that Canada has ever seen." But we have an obligation to hold the government to account, to ask the tough questions, and be a voice for the taxpayers. She has done all that and more with extraordinary ability, integrity, knowledge, and understanding. Our party is strong, incredibly united, and our interim leader has made us all a part of it. She's listened to the concerns of Canadians, whether it's local, like my Arva Flour Mill in the rural riding of Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, or of international importance, such as standing up for our Canadian troops at home and abroad. She works incredibly hard, Mr. Speaker, and she inspires us. Both her and JP have made such an enjoyable trip for us, and those we both held dear. You're a champion in our eyes, and of all of Canadians, thank you, Ronna, and may God bless.
Rob. Honourable Member for Beaches, East York.
Gilda Radner once said that having cancer gave her membership in an elite club she'd rather not belong to. We all know friends and family who have had membership in that club. I've lost uncles, my wife lost her mum. For years since, Amy's run a health-promoting supper program at Gilda's Club Greater Toronto, an organization dedicated to the idea that no one should face cancer alone. Others, like Dr. John Dick, are working to ensure that fewer of us face cancer and that those of us who do will face it successfully. Dr. Dick is well known for his pioneering research as the first scientist to identify cancer stem cells. Among many titles, he's the Canada Research Chair in Stem Cell Biology, a professor of molecular genetics at the University of Toronto, and a senior scientist with the Princess Margaret Cancer Centre. He's also the recent recipient of the Gold Leaf Prize for Discovery from the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. So to Dr. Dick from Beaches, East York, and to all recipients of the inaugural Gold Leaf Prize, thank you for your work.
There you go.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the government released a report on the future of the National Energy Board. It's the second report in a month, and surprise, surprise, it recommends something completely different. This is creating even more uncertainty in the oil and gas sector, and there is a lot at stake. Any changes the Prime Minister makes will affect thousands and thousands of families. When is the Prime Minister going to stop interfering in the independent National Energy Board process and let them do their job so projects can get approved and people can get to work?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in order to move forward on projects of import to our economy and to our future, Canadians have to have confidence in both the process and in the government. And that's why for 10 years under the previous government, Canadians had no confidence because they refused to understand that you need to build a strong economy while protecting the environment at the same time. Over the past year and a half, we have worked very, very hard to demonstrate how serious we are about both protecting the environment and creating jobs and growing the economy. We will continue to do that in a way that demonstrates our respect for Canadians and gets the confidence of Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's talk about confidence because the Prime Minister's latest report recommends that the National Energy Board headquarters be moved from Calgary to Ottawa. Why? Does the Prime Minister not have confidence in Calgarians to do the job? This is supposed to be an independent group of people. The further away from Ottawa and politicians it is, the better. Can the Prime Minister understand why this is such an insult to Western Canadians? Will he commit to leaving the National Energy Board headquarters in Calgary on the front lines and not burying it in some government department in Ottawa?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I find it a little bit much that this member and that party is talking about meddling with independent processes around National Energy Board. The fact is that government chose to politicize the National Energy Board in its decisions. It torqued and stacked the deck in so many ways that Canadians had lost confidence in the regulatory frame and withdrew support for building energy projects. That's why we've worked so hard to restore that confidence, to demonstrate that we are both protecting the environment and building a strong economy at the same time, why this government is getting it done when the previous government did not.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has talked about phasing out the oil sands, and now we know how he plans to do it. He's going to slowly but surely kill it with red tape. Everything he does is making it harder and harder for energy companies to create jobs. Business investment is at an all-time low, and this is at a time when the U.S. is unleashing the oil and gas sector in the United States. Mr. Speaker, can't the Prime Minister see that the decisions he's making are costing Canadian workers their jobs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for 10 years, Canada saw a government that refused to accept that building a strong economy goes hand in hand in the 21st century with protecting the environment. We know that investing in a responsible approach to the environment is not just going to protect our world for future generations, but is going to create the kind of good jobs, clean jobs that this generation and next generations are going to need. We know that the way to grow the economy is to demonstrate both economy and environment going together, and that's what Canadians elected us to do. That's what we're going to continue to deliver on.
Chef de l'Opposition.
Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is subject of an inquiry from the Ethics Commissioner. We know that the Commissioner is going to retire prior to the inquiry being finished. It is the Prime Minister who has to appoint the successor. The conflict is evident. I think everything indicates that the House should do it instead. Nonpartisan appointments are important, and this is one of the most important ones that the Prime Minister is going to do. Does he understand that this must be done without the involvement of his party and his caucus? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, after a Conservative government for 10 years, which did not do well with the appointment process, which showed partisanship in all of its choices, we are proud of the independent process that we have implemented in order to make appointments that are merit-based, that reflect diversity. We are going to continue to choose people that are highly qualified in order to fill the roles of this government and throughout the country. That's what the Canadians expect, and that's why the Canadians voted for us. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This is likely my last question to the Prime Minister. So I'm going to make him an offer. I'll call off the attack dogs, and nobody on this side will ask the question 18 more times. I think it sounds like a pretty fair deal. So let's end this with a real answer. Has he met with the Ethics Commissioner, yes or no? And if no, and if yes, how many times?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect every member of this House to cooperate with the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. The Commissioner has stated at committee and to my office that she does not want us discussing the process in case. But I can answer the member and say that in all my years as a parliamentarian, I have met a number of times with the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner at both formal and informal occasions. And I can assure Canadians that when this...
Order. If members wish to chant, they can do so outside. L'honorable député d'Outremont.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
Speaker, the Prime Minister's explanation of his now infamous vacation is so full of holes and contradictions, starting to sound like a White House press briefing. Let me recap. The Prime Minister broke the law by taking a private helicopter to the island. He defended this by saying that it was simply a family vacation with a family friend, along with a few senior Liberals. But now we learn that the island doesn't actually belong to the family friend. So, will the Prime Minister finally own up to this entire mess and admit that he should never have taken that exclusive holiday?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said many times, this was a personal family vacation with a longtime friend, and I'm happy to work with the Ethics Commissioner to answer any questions she may have. That's what Canadians expect of any parliamentarian, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And I am confident that Canadians will see at the end of this process that we collaborated and cooperated with the Ethics Commissioner every step of the way on any question that she might have.
Honourable Member for Outremont.
There's a small problem, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister told Canadians that the Aga Khan's private helicopter was the only way to get to the island. However, not only does the helicopter not belong to the Aga Khan, it is not true that it was the only way to get to the island. Will the Prime Minister at least admit that the statement he made was false? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in this institution, we have an Ethics Commissioner. This Commissioner is responsible for looking into these issues, and I can confirm with a high degree of certainty that at the end of this process, Canadians will see that my government, my office, and myself have cooperated and answered all the questions that the Commissioner had about this process. The Honourable Member for Outremont. Talking about ethics, last year, Liberal MPs voted to kill the investigation into KPMG. That same month, a director from KPMG was appointed treasurer for the Liberal Party. Ending the KPMG investigation and then hiring somebody from KPMG, that's called a conflict of interest. The Prime Minister approved the appointment himself. Can the Prime Minister get up today and state that there's not even the appearance of a conflict of interest? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's regrettable that I have to remind the Honourable Member that there is independence, and I want to thank the Finance Committee for the work that they did on this matter and the good work that it does every single week for the House of Commons and Canadians, because tax evasion is a file that we take very seriously. That's why in Budget 2016 we invested $444 million, and we continued investing more with Budget 2017. We take tax evasion very seriously, and we are going to continue to work to counter it. The Honourable Member for Outremont.
The Prime Minister's principal secretary sits on the party's national board. The party's constitution states the Liberal leader must consent to the appointment. And this individual worked for the Liberals and KPMG at the same time. Yeah, totally independent, Mr. Speaker. For all this talk about the middle class and those working hard to join us, this Prime Minister has shown time and again that his priority is the Liberal Party and those working hard to influence it. How many conflicts of interest does it take before the Prime Minister finally drops his talking points and recognizes the ethical problem?
The right honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's troubling to hear the member opposite call into question the independent work of committees. The fact is we respect the work that the Finance Committee does and thank them for the hard work. Canadians know that the level of openness, transparency that this government has brought forward, both when it was a third party in the House of Commons and now as government, is essential to maintain the trust and confidence that Canadians have in their institutions and in their democracy. We will continue to demonstrate the highest levels of openness, accountability, and ethics.
Order. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about leadership, Mr. Speaker. For several years, I had the opportunity to sit next to two great leaders. For 18 months, I've had the opportunity to sit next to the interim leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, and before that, for more than 2 years, I was able to sit next to the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper. In one meeting with President Bush, resolved the softwood lumber issue for 10 years. Not only did he resolve it, he signed an agreement on the pulp and paper green transformation, which helped the forestry industry. When is this Prime Minister going to... The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The former Conservative government let the agreement lapse. We oppose the decision to impose an unfair tax. Those accusations are unfounded. We continue to work on this issue with the United States, as does the Prime Minister every time he meets with his counterpart in the United States. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member for Lac-Saint-Jean. The agreement expired in October 2015. While he was campaigning, what he's saying is false. And everybody knows it. Now they're dipping into the Employment Insurance Fund, $56 billion in the EI fund, and now they're not looking after workers. We don't want more unemployment. We want to get people working by setting up an agreement with the Americans. It's time to start talking and time to start resolving. The Parliamentary Secretary to Social Development.
Action on this file and protect and support the workers and the communities that are suffering as we move through this very difficult time on softwood lumber. Softwood lumber remains a priority for this government. A negotiated deal is a priority, but we need a good deal, not just any deal. We stand ready to respond to the communities, the municipalities, the provinces, and the community organizations that are suffering during this time, and remain committed to making sure the Canadians receive the benefits they can as we move through these tough times.
Honourable Member for Red Deer-Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is currently under 2 investigations by the Ethics Commissioner for breaking the law. The current Ethics Commissioner is set to retire this July. So in an attempt to save face, the Prime Minister has appointed his House Leader to choose the person who will be investigating the Prime Minister. What a joke. I'm sure the Government House Leader who serves at the Prime Minister's pleasure is so grateful for the opportunity to be entangled in the Prime Minister's ethical mess. Did the Prime Minister provide the House Leader with a short list of Liberals that are fit for the position, or did he only provide her with a single name?
Honourable Government House Leader.
I'm sure the honourable member would agree that we are elected to this place to serve Canadians. Those are the very people that I work hard for. Those are the very people that this government works hard for. And those are the very people that I encourage to apply. Because this government has actually brought in a new, open, transparent, merit-based appointment process. When it comes to making appointments, we encourage Canadians to apply because these positions are available online. Exactly what we committed to Canadians, we will deliver on. I look forward to seeing the merit-based appointment be fulfilled, and I look forward to handling the work. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the appointment of the next Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner next July leaves a bitter aftertaste. Transferring the responsibility for the appointment from the Prime Minister's office to the office of the Leader of the Government, that's a barely disguised decoy. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister confirm that the selection criteria for the next Ethics Commissioner will be the same as for the new Official Languages Commissioner, which means being part of the Liberal family and being a generous Liberal donator? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. I am pleased to rise in this House to talk about Madame Meyer, our new Official Languages Commissioner. I hope the appointment will be agreed upon by this House and the Senate. She has received the support of many organizations throughout the country. The president of the Federation of Francophone and Acadian Communities said that the commitment of Madame Meyer when it comes to the francophonie and linguistic duality is well known. She lived the struggle to save the Montfort Hospital, and as Minister of Francophone Affairs in Ontario, she implemented a commissioner for French language services in the province, and many recognize her qualities.
Mr. Speaker, does no one on that side see the ridiculousness of the Prime Minister giving the House Leader the job of appointing the person who will be investigating? The House Leader was given her job by the Prime Minister. She answers to the Prime Minister, and every day we see her standing up answering for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has acknowledged that there's a conflict with him appointing the next Ethics Commissioner. That's good that he's acknowledged that. Does he not see that this is not a fix? And the same conflict still exists, and I hope the House Leader doesn't get up and answer for him because it proves my points.
Honourable Government House Leader.
To this place by Canadians. We are here to serve Canadians. Those are the very people that we work hard for. That's always been my goal, and that's why I always encourage all of us to work better together. When it comes to the appointment process, this government put in a new appointment process that is open, transparent, and merit-based. Our aim is always to identify high-quality candidates who will help to achieve gender parity and truly reflect Canada's diversity. I encourage all Canadians to apply, and if the member has a name she recommends, I encourage her to tell her constituents to apply as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All opposition House
But, Mr. Speaker, the House Leader will be appointing somebody who will be investigating her boss, the person who appointed her. This is nonsense, and it would be really nice if we had a Prime Minister who wasn't always in ethical hot water. Unfortunately, here we are in this position where the man who is leading this country is also under multiple investigations. He's acknowledged that he can't be the one appointing the new Ethics Commissioner. Will he do the right thing? Will he make the right decision, find a real solution to this actual problem instead of this farcical fig leaf of a fix?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
And that's exactly why we put in a new appointment process, an open, transparent, merit-based appointment process where all Canadians from coast to coast to coast can apply. Positions that are open are available online. Canadians are welcome to apply so that they also can be part of this process. We know how important these positions are to the work that the government does. We will continue to work hard for all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Sherbrooke.
Monsieur le Président, les liens étroits entre BlackRock, le gouvernement, la Banque d'infrastructure et ses profits n'étaient pas suffisants. Voilà que maintenant que KPMG se rapproche des cercles fermés du Parti libéral et du...
Je comprends qu'il n'y a pas d'interprétation.
I understand that there's no interpretation for the moment. Is it now working? I would ask the Honourable Member for Sherbrooke to restart. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The close ties between BlackRock and the government and the Infrastructure Bank were just not enough. Now, KPMG is getting closer to the close circles of the Liberal Party and the Prime Minister himself. This is on top of the revolving door between the CRA and KMG and the many public contracts that are still being granted to that firm. The minister says that the jaws of the trap are closing on tax sheets, so how to explain the closer ties being woven between the Liberal government and the accounting firm KPMG? When she says that those jaws are closing, does that mean those are the jaws of the same trap closing on jobs for the Liberal Party? The Honourable Minister of Revenue. I would like to thank the member for giving me the opportunity to tell everyone that the government is firmly committed to fighting tax evasion and aggressive tax planning. That's why, in the last budget, the government invested $444 million. This is a historic investment. In the budget that was just tabled, there were even more invested. This has allowed us to go get $13 million last year, Mr. Speaker.
For Skeena Bulkley Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister clearly has a conflict of interest problem. Not only is he currently under an ethics investigation, but his solution to the whole mess is that the Prime Minister is asking his own House Leader to appoint a new ethics watchdog to investigate the Prime Minister. So the Liberal House Leader, who will likely stand and defend the Prime Minister's ethical challenges yet again, is being asked by her boss to choose an ethics commissioner to investigate her boss, and apparently Joe Volpe made the short list. The Liberals likely can't spell conflict of interest, let alone understand it. So how in the world can she claim to do this job with any credibility whatsoever?
Honourable Government House Leader.
As I have said time and time again, this government has put in a new process, an open, transparent, merit-based process where Canadians can apply, and I encourage them to apply. And when it comes to a shortlist, there is no shortlist, so if the member has information that he would like to share, I look forward to receiving it. But what is important, Mr. Speaker, is the important work that the Conflict and Ethics Commissioner does. This position is a serious position. We will always work with the person in that position, and I encourage Canadians to apply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Alors, honorable député.
Order. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, even better than I do, that the Liberals like to brag about being green and transparent, but the reality is something else entirely. Today, the Auditor General had to study the issue of fossil fuels, and in the report table today, the Auditor General is using strong words. The Minister of Finance refused to let us be informed, refused to give us access to information that we needed. Mr. Speaker, why is the government saying one thing and doing another? Why are they putting obstacles in the way of the Auditor General? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. I would like to thank my colleague for his question. The Office of the Auditor General has produced excellent work, and we welcome the recommendations. These funds will allow us to invest in clean growth and will help the country get on the right track for an economy, for a low-carbon economy. We are progressively eliminating ineffective subsidies to fossil fuels by 2025, a G20 commitment, and we are on the right path to meet that commitment. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent.
Speaker, it's only when the government is cut that he tried to act correctly. Because, Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General was very straight this morning, very critical to the action of the actual government about green policies. They say, the Auditor General said, and I quote him, "We had a dispute with the government department over our right to access the information we need to do our work." Mr. Speaker, we're talking about transparency and we're talking about environmental. Why this government is always wrong on those issues?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Auditor General for his work, and also we accept his recommendations. Our government has a strong plan to invest in clean growth that will help create good middle-class jobs and get the country on a path to a low-carbon economy. We have made commitments to our partners in the G20 to phase out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies by the year 2025, and we are on track to meeting those targets, Mr. Speaker. Eliminating policy measures that subsidize the production of consumption of fossil fuels is an important step in addressing climate change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Since 2009, P3 Canada, a Crown corporation, leveraged over $6 billion for infrastructure from an initial investment of $1.3 billion. An internal report advised putting the infrastructure bank under an existing body, such as P3 Canada, would be cost-effective, efficient, and less bureaucratic. Had the Liberals listened, the $35 billion investment to P3 Canada can leverage neither $170 billion for transformable infrastructure. Can the minister tell Canadians why he ignored that expert advice?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, let me quote the Canadian Council for Public-Private Partnership on the bank. What they say, the Council is optimistic that the bank will play a significant role in attracting more private capital while growing the pipeline of P3 projects across Canada. Mr. Speaker, our goal is to build more infrastructure that Canadian communities need. And we will do that in cooperation with our municipalities, in provinces, as well as private sector, to make sure they have the right type of infrastructure that they deserve. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. We have a problem, Mr. Speaker. This week, the Minister of Finance said that Cabinet is going to have the final word on the projects selected for the Infrastructure Bank. However, the Minister of Infrastructure and his acolytes said at committee that the only projects that would be selected were those that would be the most interesting to investors. My question is simple. Who's going to decide on the good projects for this infrastructure bank? Will it be the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Infrastructure, or the investors based on their own potential profits?
Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Well, Mr. Speaker, for the last 2 weeks, the members of the opposition have been criticizing us for being too close to private capital. Now, they're saying that we will have an oversight. We have created a right balance that will allow us to mobilize private capital, build more infrastructure, at the same time being accountable to Parliament and making sure that government is there to protect the public interest and to ensure that projects being built are serving the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, while the Liberals continue to repeat their commitment to protecting the supply management system fully, today's Auditor General report shows the opposite. It shows the failure of the supply management system for eggs, poultry, and dairy. This concerns us all. When will the government take action to protect a system that works and that provides us with a sufficient quantity of well-priced, high-quality Canadian products that we consume every day?
Minister of Agriculture.
As I've said many times in this House, we have and will continue to support supply management. Yes, with the duties relief program, when I became Minister of Agriculture, I found it was a big problem at the border. We addressed that problem, and there has been 6 import companies lost their certificate to import products into this country, the supply management products. We're working on this issue. It's a big issue, and we will have and will continue to make sure supply management is protected.
Honourable Member for Hamilton Central.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General regularly exposes government negligence and incompetence, and today is no exception. Exactly. But the latest report also reveals that the Liberals refused to give the Auditor General the information he requested. The power to access information is crucial to the AG's independence and is in fact protected in law. But after being elected on promises of openness and transparency, the Liberals have deliberately stonewalled the Auditor General. Shame. Why is the government undermining the Auditor General, and what exactly are they trying to hide from Canadians?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. We also want to thank the Auditor General for his report, and we accept his recommendations. Greater openness and transparency in government helps strengthen Canada's truth in the public institutions. That is why the government continues to take action to better reflect the values and expectations of Canadians on this important matter. Going forward, the government will provide budget preparation information and other documents as defined under existing OICs to the Auditor General as they become available. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Brampton East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Air travel is essential to Canada's economic growth and prosperity. Canadians, businesses, and tourists all benefit from a safe and efficient air industry. With recent media reports of denied boardings, lost luggage, and runway delays, the time for action is now. Can the Minister of Transportation please update this House and all Canadians on the steps being taken to protect air travelers in Canada?
Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the member from Brampton East for his excellent question. You know, when a Canadian purchases a ticket, sometimes at considerable expense, he or she expects to be treated with fairness and respect. Yes. In a sense, a contract has been signed. Yes. Well, I was very proud today to table on behalf of the Government of Canada a new legislation that will ensure that we have passenger rights. And, Mr. Speaker, you can be assured that if any of those passenger rights are violated, the passengers will be suitably and properly compensated in a timely manner. Thank you.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, while our competitors in the United States are busy cutting taxes and making it easier to get to yes on energy projects, the Liberal-appointed National Energy Board Review Panel has recommended layering on even more red tape. They want to double review timelines to over 3 years and make it even harder for job-creating energy projects to be approved in Canada. No amount of additional red tape will turn a pipeline opponent into a pipeline proponent, so why are the Liberals so intent on making it harder for these job-creating energy projects to proceed?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that the honourable member will agree that the National Energy Board that we inherited wasn't perfect. And I'm sure he might agree that significant reform would be a good thing for Canada's energy industry. I think he might also acknowledge that since this government took power, 3 pipelines have been approved. Yes. We will now take the recommendations that have been given to us by an expert panel of 5 who have consulted Canadians, and we will review that with the objective in mind of creating the greatest regulator in the world, right here in Canada.
Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the world already thinks we have the best energy regulator in the world. The Prime Minister revealed his true feelings toward the oil sands when he said he'd phase them out, and revealed his true feelings towards Alberta when he said that Canada wasn't doing well because Albertans were in charge. So it comes as no surprise that this Liberal-appointed NEB review panel would imply that Calgarians cannot be trusted to independently and professionally evaluate energy projects. Will the Prime Minister condemn this anti-Alberta recommendation and stop pitting one region of the country against the other?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Pleasure of being in Calgary last week, and while in Calgary, announcing projects with the Government of Alberta to incent the industry, which is known not only across Canada but around the world to be innovative and creative. We have all the respect in the world for the entrepreneurship of Albertans. We are working with them as we move gradually to a lower carbon economy, and we wish that the members opposite had as much confidence in the people of Alberta that we do on this side of the House.
The honourable member. Order. The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, in the war on terror, Canada most often follows the United States in designation of terrorist entities such as al-Qaeda or successor groupings. Now, the latest incarnation, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, isn't on the U.S. list because it absorbed a U.S.-sponsored guerrilla body in Syria's multidimensional civil war. But Canada, by also not listing this clearly terrorist composite group, is creating challenges for prosecution of terrorist funding or recruitment of Canadians by this group. Why won't the government act and designate?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the question from the member opposite. He knows that Canada has a framework around which we designate groups around the world as terrorist organizations, and we continue to use that robust framework in all of our designations of terrorist groups while we continue to work with international allies to rid the world of terrorist organizations and make it safer, specifically for the people of the war-torn country of Syria. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
One of the Broadway tickets that the Prime Minister bought for wealthy bankers and diplomats was for the permanent mission of Venezuela to the UN. The permanent representative at this mission has been a man who was the longest-serving cabinet minister under the despot ruler Hugo Chavez, and then served as foreign affairs minister to the despot Nicolas Maduro. Can the Prime Minister confirm that the Liberals used Canadian tax dollars to wine and dine this man while Venezuelans suffer?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, this government is well aware of the deteriorating political and economic situation in Venezuela. Just today, I had the opportunity to meet with the wife of imprisoned political opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez, along with his mother, to talk about the terrible situation in Venezuela. Canada has been a leader on the international stage, co-sponsoring a resolution at the Organization of American States. We continue to work with our regional allies to call on the Venezuelan government to uphold its international commitments, restore order, and respect democracy in Venezuela.
Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Yesterday, the Minister of Health confused Vancouver and British Columbia when it comes to the opioid crisis. Clearly, the member for Vancouver Central was correct when she said her government is ignoring the West. But one thing the minister did get right is the horrifying increase in overdose deaths under her watch. 3,000 Canadians will die in 2017, a 50% increase over last year. Mr. Speaker, does the minister still think she's making progress?
Very good. Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for raising this issue again in the House. And again, we will talk about the fact that this is an unprecedented national public health crisis, and we are working determinedly on all aspects of this crisis. Our response is comprehensive. We've invested money in prevention. We are investing money in treatment. We are scaling up access to all ranges of treatment, including pharmaceutical-grade diacetylmorphine. We are making sure that we are expanding harm reduction sites, including the passage of Bill C-37 in this House yesterday, to make sure people will have harms reduced, and we will continue to work at all levels to save the lives of Canadians.
Order. Order. The member for St. Albert Edmonton is having trouble containing himself. There are often heated discussions in this place, but members know that the rules provide that we're not to interrupt. We need to listen and hear the questions and the answers.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. The government wants to help young Canadians find jobs and improve their lives, but it has a lot of trouble showing it. While youth unemployment is stagnating at about double the national average, precarious employment is exploding. Apparently, we have to get used to that, according to the Finance Minister. So much so that the expert panel on youth employment issued its report at the end of March, according to a tweet by its chair, but the government has not published it. My question is simple. When will it make this report public and take action to create high-quality jobs for our youth?
We're reviewing the report right now. We'll have more to say about that in the near future. But what I'm excited to talk about is the investment that we continue to make in youth to ensure that they have the skills of today and of tomorrow. And that's why we invested unprecedented amounts in this particular budget of 2017 to make access to skills training available to youth across the country. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, d'Orléans-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, partisanship, elastic ethics, the first appointment of a senior officer of Parliament by this government is clearly happening against this backdrop. If you don't fund and help the Liberal Party, and even if you have all the skills necessary, you will be set aside. The recipe is simple: $5,000 to the Liberal Party, $500 to the Prime Minister's leadership run, and you get the position of Commissioner of the Official Languages. Is this the recipe for the modus operandi of the Prime Minister for upcoming appointments? Mr. Speaker, our two official languages are a priority for this government. After a very long, open process, Ms. Meyer qualified for the position for 30 years, as I said so. Ms. Meyer has fought for Francophone rights, including Montfort Hospital in Ottawa to guarantee French health care. I mentioned earlier to what extent many groups who support her candidacy throughout the country were convinced she's the best candidate, and we will get the support of both houses, the House of Commons and the Senate.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is taking cash for access to a whole new level. Now, for a $5,000 donation to the Liberal Party, including $500 to the Prime Minister's own leadership campaign, he's appointing Liberal friends to be commissioners of the Official Languages Act, officers of this House. So my question is very simple to the Prime Minister. How big of a donation to the Liberal Party does it take to get appointed as the Ethics Commissioner?
Minister of Canadian Heritage.
For our government, and after a rigorous, open and transparent merit-based process, Mrs. Maillard emerged as the most qualified candidate for this important position. She has worked tirelessly for the defense of community language, official languages, communities' rights, and she's been very much involved, especially in the protection of the Montfort Hospital, which was to ensure that Ontarians have access to health care in the language of their choice. We're convinced this is the best candidate suited for this important position, and I hope that the House and the Senate will support
the honourable order. The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
When it comes to cronyism and appointing friends of the Prime Minister and Kathleen Wynne to plum patronage positions, the light speed at which the Liberals move is simply amazing, Mr. Speaker. Yet when it comes to replacing the Ethics Commissioner, whose term ends in less than 2 months, the appointment process is moving at a snail's pace. With the deadline looming, it can cause one to wonder why the delay. Is the Prime Minister stalling, knowing that the Ethics Commissioner has said she may not have time to complete her investigations into his ethical lapses, or is he hoping the investigation will ride into the sunset along with Mrs. Dawson's retirement?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has said many times that he will answer any questions that the Ethics an Ethics Commissioner has. When it comes to the appointment process, we have introduced a new merit-based appointment process that is open, transparent. All positions to apply are available online. I encourage Canadians to apply. It's a very important position. We know that they do important work, and we will continue to work hard for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sault Ste. Marie.
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to helping the middle class in my riding of Sault Ste. Marie and across this great country. Domestic steel operations directly employ over 22,000 Canadians while supporting an additional 100,000 indirect jobs. In my riding, a strong steel industry helps a strong middle class, including the hardworking members of the United Steelworkers at SR Steel and Tenaris. Will the Parliamentary Secretary of Finance please share with this House how Budget 2017 is strengthening the steel industry in Canada?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd first of all want to thank my colleague from Sault Ste. Marie for his important question and also his continued advocacy for the steel industry. As a part of Budget 2017 and Budget 2016, actually, our government has taken significant steps to support the Canadian steel producers. Most recently, measures in Budget 2017 include important changes to Canada's trade remedy legislation. We consulted with Canada's steel producers, listened to their suggestions, and took action to help best position the industry to address unfair trade practices, grow their businesses, and create good, well-paying jobs for middle-class Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Grand Prairie Mackenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's that time of the year again when families start making plans for their summer vacations. I'm wondering if the Prime Minister can commit to getting an estimate in advance from the Privy Council office on how much his summer vacation dreams might cost. And I'm hoping that he'll maybe take that into consideration when he chooses what to do and where to go this time.
Remind colleagues that questions must be about the responsibility of the government. There's no points of order during question period. The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Yesterday, the inquiry into murdered and missing Indigenous women got a failing grade from the Native Women's Association of Canada. And yesterday, 30 families and Indigenous leaders also said the process is in, quote, serious trouble. A full and independent inquiry was promised to families, but that is not what they're getting. I've asked this before, and the minister has refused to answer. Do the commissioners have full access to inquiry funding? And if not, who is delaying approval of those expenditures?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Speaker, our government is committed to ending the ongoing national tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The terms of reference of the inquiry make clear that the families should and must be at the centre. I've read the letter from the families. They're making heartfelt suggestions and asking important questions. I am looking forward to hearing the Commissioner's response and to see if our government can do anything to help them. The government has also taken immediate action on root causes with investments in women's shelters, housing, education, and child welfare reform.
The
honourable member for Alfred Pellan. Mr. Speaker, the City of Laval is one of the most innovative in Canada, with strong and dynamic technological, scientific, digital, and aerospace sectors. Laval has many interesting projects in order to position itself as a smart city that is green and oriented towards solutions for the future. How can the Smart Cities Challenge encourage our cities to adopt innovative approaches to urban planning and infrastructure that will improve the quality of life of their citizens? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for his question. The Smart Cities Challenge will encourage cities to adopt new and innovative approaches to city building, improve the quality of life for residents through the implementation of clean, digitally connected technologies, including green buildings, smart roads, and energy systems. This $300 million program is a great opportunity for Canadian municipalities, and look forward to launching this challenge in the coming months. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals continue to fail Canadian seniors and their families. On Friday, I asked why they're not making palliative care funding a priority. The Parliamentary Secretary's response? Medical aid in dying. Really? The Liberal solution to an aging population is assisted suicide? When will the Liberals get serious about the issues facing Canadian seniors and help those in need of proper home care and palliative care?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question and for his advocacy on behalf of palliative care. We are very happy as a government that we were able to support the provinces and territories to the tune of $6 billion of new money to expand access to home care and palliative care. I've had the opportunity now to work with my counterparts in the provinces and territories, have looked at some of the fantastic programs they're introducing, including an outstanding program in Nova Scotia where paramedics are delivering palliative care. There are wonderful innovations going on to expand palliative care across this country.
The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, let's look back here. KPMG proposed methods to its clients to defraud the CRA. The government refuses to put an end to contracts it gives to KPMG. CRA hires from KPMG. And now we find out that the treasurer of the Liberal Party, appointed by the Prime Minister during the Isle of Man scandal, used to work at KPMG. Does the Prime Minister realize that with KPMG, his party is falling back into old habits of scheming, conflict of interest, and cronyism that harks back to the sponsorship scandal? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to answer questions by my colleagues opposite and remind them that last year we invested $444 million to combat tax avoidance and tax evasion. This year, $524 million. I think that the catch was pretty good last year because we did end up collecting $13 billion, $1.3 billion with voluntary disclosure. So we have a plan, it's working, and we have evidence of that. The honourable member for Repentigny. The Auditor General confirmed what we already knew, Mr. Speaker. This government is not serious. Nothing concrete has been put forward to get us out of the oil industry. It's either redacted or hidden. Giving lessons on the world scene to fight climate change while having no plan here to get out of the fossil fuel business is contradictory, just as it is to give lessons on human rights while selling armored vehicles to Saudi Arabia. When will this government start to take our environment seriously and table a concrete plan to fight climate change? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, we thank the Auditor General for his work and we welcome his recommendations. Our government has a solid plan to invest in clean growth that will create middle-class jobs. We're on the right track to have a low-carbon economy. We've made a commitment with our G20 partners to progressively eliminate ineffective subsidies to the fossil fuel industry by 2025, and we're on the right track to achieve that objective. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Brought to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of the 2017 recipients of the Canadian Institutes of Health Research Gold Leaf Prizes, Dr. Julio Montaner, Dr. John Dick, Dr. Gregory Steinberg, and Dr. Charlotte Loppe. Pursuant to order made earlier today, I now give the floor to the official opposition House Leader.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize and express deep gratitude to someone who is a remarkable leader, member of Parliament, mentor, and friend. The member for Sturgeon River Parkland has tirelessly led our party and Her Majesty's loyal opposition for the past 18 months.
She has done so with dedication, with passion and energy, and with professionalism.
All the while, she's consistently shown her sharp intelligence, keen sense of humor, and her genuine kindness and nurture. When the member for Sturgeon River Parkland took over the role as leader of the Conservative Party, it was as interim leader. But never once did she treat this position as a placeholder or merely a fill-in. From the onset, she gave everything to the role, and in doing so has led and unified a caucus and party through what many would acknowledge could have been a very difficult time. Her capable and true servant leadership style has led our party to a place of strength